The gap between the rich and the poor is larger than ever, and frustration is growing to very dangerous levels, Michael Snyder reports. Have you ever felt like you could never seem to get ahead no matter how hard you try? If so, you are definitely not alone. The gap between the ultra wealthy and the rest of us has never been greater, and more wealth is being transferred to the top of the pyramid with each passing day. Unfortunately, our economy has evolved into a higher centralized system that is designed to drain wealth from those that do not own wealth producing assets and transfer it to those who that do own wealth producing assets. Sadly, even most of our homes and most of our vehicles have been turned into wealth producing assets by the elite. Every month, when you make your mortgage payment and your vehicle payment, you're making the wealthy even wealthier. The entire system is designed to get you deep into debt and keep you paying on that debt until, of course, you're no longer here. And as we've seen in recent years, those that manage the system will do whatever it takes to protect the wealth of the elite. The Federal Reserve pumped trillions of dollars into the system to prop up the value of financial assets, and it worked. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is hovering around 40,000, and those that own stocks are living the high life. But who owns most of the stocks? According to Federal Reserve data, the wealthiest 10% of all Americans own a record high 93% of all the stocks. The wealthiest Americans that have never owned so much of the stock market, with the top 10% now holding a record 93% of U.S. equities, according to Federal Reserve data. On the flip side, the poorest 50% of all Americans own just 1% of all the stocks. Still, stock ownership is skewed towards the top. By comparison, the bottom 50% of Americans owned just 1% of all stocks and mutual fund shares in the third quarter, central bank data shows. Of course, stocks are just one form of wealth, but when you add in all other forms of wealth, the bottom 50% of the U.S. population still owns just 2.6% of all the wealth. Tens of millions of Americans have lost faith in the system and are becoming increasingly restless, and our politicians have been trying to keep them pacified with handouts. At this point, a whopping 42 million Americans receive food stamp benefits each month, and much of that money is spent on junk food. An alarming study has spotlighted how 42 million food stamp recipients spent their welfare handouts on ultra-processed junk food. Coca-Cola, Sprite, and other soft drinks are the most commonly bought items via the $135 billion a year Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, a new study says. Candy, potato chips, frozen pizza, ice cream, cookies, and other ultra-processed foods dominate the top 20 items, says a report from the Economic Policy Innovation Center, EPIC. A lot of those that are receiving government assistance are actually employed, but the cost of living has become so oppressive that even people working for some of the biggest companies in America cannot afford the basics. 5 years after Amazon raised wages to $15 an hour, half of warehouse workers surveyed by researchers say they struggle to afford enough food or a place to live. The national study, published Wednesday by the University of Illinois Chicago Center for Urban Economic Development, asked U.S. employees about their economic well-being, including whether they'd skipped meals when hungry or were worried about being able to make rent or mortgage payments. 53% of the respondents reported that they had experienced one or more forms of food insecurity in the prior 3 months, and 48% experienced one or more forms of housing insecurity. Workers who said they took unpaid time off after getting hurt on the job were more likely to report trouble paying their bills, the researchers found. Today, approximately 40% of the entire U.S. population, 40%, is either living in poverty or is considered to be among the ranks of the working poor. In order to maintain the same standard of living as it did in January 2021, it now costs the average American family $12,000 more a year. If your income has not increased by $12,000 a year since January 2021, you are falling behind. And now that economic conditions are starting to deteriorate at a frightening pace, Americans are becoming increasingly pessimistic about where the economy is heading next. After a spurt of optimism, Americans are feeling a little more glum about the economy again. Consumer sentiment, a gauge of Americans' economic perceptions, is at a 6-month low, according to a closely watched index by the University of Michigan. The measure notches its biggest drop since 2021, reflecting the persistent tag of inflation on household budgets and fueling fears that rising prices, unemployment, and interest rates could all worsen in the coming months. That pessimism is altering consumer spending habits. McDonald's, Home Depot, Under Armour, and Starbucks all recently reported disappointing earnings as people cut back on fast food, kitchen renovations, sneakers, and afternoon lattes. Frustration in the economy is going to be a major theme during the next few years here in the United States. Of course, the entire world is grappling with a system that is leaving way too many people behind. According to Oxfam, most of the global population has gotten poorer since the turn of the decade. Oxfam's new report, Inequality Inc., explores the disparity between the uber wealthy and the rest of society. Since 2020, 5 billion people have become poorer, while the world's 5 richest men have more than doubled their fortunes at a rate of $15 million per hour. Can you imagine? Just like in the United States, the gap between the wealthy and the poor globally has reached a level we have never seen before. Since 2020, Oxfam says that billionaires have gotten $3.3 trillion richer. Hundreds of millions of people are struggling to keep up with the cost of living. Meanwhile, billionaires are $3.3 trillion richer than they were in 2020. This is not a coincidence. When we analyzed the world's largest corporations, we found that a billionaire is running or the principal shareholder of 7 out of 10 of them. Such a system is not sustainable. If most of the global population is steadily getting poorer and a tiny sliver of the global population is becoming fabulously wealthy, it's only a matter of time before the entire system comes crashing down. Hundreds of millions of people are becoming deeply angry and deeply frustrated, and civil unrest will erupt in major cities all over the planet during the period of great chaos that we are entering. Today, the world is dominated by ultra-powerful governments, ultra-powerful banks, and ultra-powerful corporations. The little guy is being absolutely crushed, but it won't be too long before the deeply corrupt system that the ultra-wealthy have created suddenly implodes right in front of their eyes. Michael Snyder reports on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Michael's new book, entitled Chaos, available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon, and you can check out his new Substack newsletter right here. About the author, Michael Snyder, extremely controversial new book, Chaos, available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 7 other books available on Amazon, including End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, commissions earned. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, The Most Important News, and he always freely and happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. You can connect with Michael on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and share his articles on your own social media accounts. It's definitely a great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.